on today's episode of Parenting Great Kids.
But they never asked me about how technology was impacting me. I basically spent the last 10 years actually building a nonprofit educating young people called Half the Story about mental health and technology.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. Here's your host, Dr. Meg Meeker.
Joining us today are Larissa May and Dr. Raghu Appasani, co-founders of Ginko, a new AI tool built by clinicians to help families manage screen time. Welcome to Parenting Great Kids, Larissa and Dr. Raghu.
Thank you so much for having us.
On our podcast, we've covered the topic of digital safety. And what I found is that parents and grandparents feel overwhelmed and they feel like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to start. This is totally intimidating for me. So tell me more about Ginko.
Well, I'm happy to kick that off. I think most founders build something that they need for themselves. And I've been working in the digital wellness space for the last 10 years. And for those of you that haven't heard about the term digital wellness, it's the idea that we can develop a positive and healthy relationship with technology in the same way that we have to try to do that or teach our kids to do that with food and other things in our life. And when I was a college student, I was really the first generation that went to college with a device or social media. And I almost lost my life because of my struggles with mental health and found it so interesting that even though I was at Vanderbilt, an incredible healthcare institution, that the psychiatrist had asked me about all these other things in my life that potentially could contribute to what I was experiencing, but they never asked me about how technology was impacting me. And if they had actually just picked up my phone and looked at the data within my device, which is something that big tech makes money off of every day, I probably would have been able to get to the conclusion of my diagnosis quicker. Hey, she looks like she's walking 200 steps a day and she's scrolling more than she's socializing, sleeping, or any of the things that you need to be human. And so I basically spent the last 10 years actually building a nonprofit educating young people called Half the Story about mental health and technology. But in the process of that and traveling all over the world, I started to actually have pediatricians reaching out because only 70% of them were bringing up technology in sessions because it was always changing, not something you're trained on. But also parents started messaging me late at night asking, what do I do if I think my kid has an issue with tech? What do I do if my child's being groomed? What's the right age for my kid to have a device? And I realized after looking through the internet that there weren't any places that were consumer ready and accessible, but backed by doctors. So what I did is I started calling Raghu every night and triaging these situations and scenarios, which really led us to building Ginko, which is your 24/7 guide to raising kids online. And our vision is to support parents through every screen struggle that they're going through, to go from screen fear into screen freedom, and to give them playbooks for all of those scenarios that are tailored to your child. But the greater vision is to really be able to build a tool that helps parents use technology as a window to what's going on in their child's inner world, because we know technology is not going anywhere. So let's use the data ourselves to be better advocates as parents for our kids before the bad things happen.
I'd to add one thing. It's not just the parents that are overwhelmed. We're trying to create something that actually brings that whole community and family system as well.
It's so important. And I think in medicine, there are a lot of pediatricians who are trained to sort of isolate the child, the teenager, talk to them and keep the parents away. But one of the things I try to do is I'll talk to the teen, then I bring the parents back in and say, this is what's really happening. And Larissa, sorry that you went through those mental health issues, but that's exactly what I see. I have literally had 2 kids come in and try to commit suicide. And they admitted that being on Instagram a lot contributed because they felt so badly about themselves day after day after day after day. And so I sort of jumped on the social media bandwagon pretty quickly because I was very angry. Nobody really was paying attention, even their parents, because parents didn't realize, what their kids are seeing and experiencing. So the idea of having parents and loved ones in the child's or teenager's circle sort of coming together and giving them support is huge. And I can absolutely see why, the doctors around you didn't recognize what was going on, because this is all new. I mean, this is a brand new frontier for us. Now, Dr. Raghu, you are a psychiatrist. And how was it? So you joined up with Larissa saying, you're the tech person and I'm the psychiatrist, and I understand what's going on with kids, emotionally and mental health wise. So talk to me about your interest in coming in with Ginko.
I had started to build my own practice, which is more of a concierge style practice. And so I found myself in the living room sitting with these families, and you go and sit there and you start to recognize, right? Why is this child struggling? It's that they're glued to their phone because they're choosing to do that, right? It's what's going on in a family system. And so I really wanted to take a preventative approach. How do we help families and children build healthier relationships with that? With her platform and her over a decade-long involvement, it was a natural fit for us to come together.
I love it. And I wanted to say, teenagers get a real bad rap, but my experience with them, they do. But my experience with them is, if you talk to them as though they're smart, as though they have something to contribute, and you give them a cause, you sort of say, I need your help to blank that nobody else has done. They are off and running. I mean, they just love it. And so I love that you're targeting teens as well, because teens, this next generation of younger people, they're going to be pivotal in, making a change in here. Do you have a specific story about I heard about a late night DM or a conversation that you had with a parent or child that really made you go, oh, I need to do something now?
Yes. And
one or thousands, Lars.
One of the best, yeah.
So many. And I think, one thing I just want to emphasize is about our world, and that the one that we're living in, and young people, which you so eloquently stated, is that young people are so used to being stalked by their parents, but all they really want is to be supported. And at Ginko, what we're really trying to do at large is to create more of that understanding of what a child is going through, as opposed to getting parents to just pull a device away, because on the other side of that screen could be information that the child wants to end their life, that the child is struggling with their own academic performance. And that data and that knowledge is so critical for a parent to be able to advocate for their kid in the real world. And so for me, I think I've always been, and this is something Raghu and I share so deeply, is maybe because he's a psychiatrist, but it's that the why is so much more important than the what. And what your child is doing on the internet is only one piece of what's happening in their life. And I'll never forget this. There was a parent who, and this happens all the time. Like, actually, it was even just a couple weeks ago. I think a lot of parents think that social media apps are all bad, but it was actually a parent whose son was on Temu, which they had 2 Super Bowl commercials last year, for those of you that watched. It is an overseas, almost like much cheaper Amazon, where you can get a bunch of things. And her son wanted to shop on Temu. And he started getting like all of these really inappropriate photos of things that were targeting him. And this kid was 11 years old. And for me, the mom started screenshotting me all these horrific images. And I was like, I can't believe that this is coming from a shopping platform. A social media platform, okay. But a shopping platform, not okay. And she was like, honestly, Lars, like, I don't know how to talk to my son about this. I don't know what to do. I didn't want him on social media, so I let him use Temu as an alternative. How do I explore that? And I said, you know what? Let me just ask Ginko. Like, why don't you put that into Ginko, and Ginko can come up with a guidebook for you based on the interventions and work that we've been building with our psychiatrists. And, she walked away from that and was like, wow, like, I actually feel like I had the tools to navigate this in the moment. Whereas so many parents are DMing me or calling law enforcement who aren't trained on this either. And so, the blessing and the curse of this is that it's a new frontier, but every day the goalpost is moving, which is what makes it so hard for clinicians, because, the human body is the human body. Our heart over 100 years has not changed that much. However, our minds are rapidly changing because they're being rewired by technology and devices where trends and all of these things are changing at every moment in day. And so, that's one of many. I think there's been a lot more sad ones around kids being groomed or, forcing young boys to send naked photos of themselves, which I think we talk so much about the girls, but I'm really trying to talk more about the boys these days because they're so left behind emotionally, and that's why we see them lash out in other ways.
Yeah. And I wanted to say one thing too. It's your average pediatrician and internist is not very savvy in this area because they don't have time to be. When I see teenagers, I take a fair amount of time, but that's because I kind of have the luxury of doing it. I sort of set my practice up that way. But a lot of them, the physicians who are really good, are just trying to keep their head above water with insurance issues, and they have less time with patients. And so that's why something like Ginko is so good because, like you said, if you go into your regular pediatrician, probably not going to ask you about your phone and social media because they may not have an answer for you. And because we're not trained in it, I know what I know because of my own interest and my own interest in adolescence. And it's also having kids and grandkids. So, I'm not trying to throw physicians under the bus, but I think it's important for parents to know if you really want to be taught about, what do you do with social media and other platforms on the internet that are going to harm your child? And then, how do you talk to them? Unfortunately, usually your physician's office is not the place to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't want to be rude to physicians. They just don't have the time. And this takes a lot of time. And that, kind of brings me to, the status quo. Why do the current approaches that we have often fail or even backfire? I mean, we've got phones that keep kids off the internet. We've got net nanny. We've got all of these different things. But it seems like they're failing on some level. So what is going on with our regular approaches?
It's challenging.
Yeah.
And then let's say that you do ask a question about the impact of social media. That opens the door to have 15 or 20 minutes with that child. So then you're leaving them in somewhat of a vulnerable state. That's really where Ginko can come. And it's, over time, what we're building is also the ability to collect certain data that provides insights into the health of the child, which can then actually be shared with a therapist or pediatrician. So things become streamlined and it nats into that workflow. We also have a whole clinician curriculum that we're getting accredited as well to try to deliver in that training too. So it's really important you brought that up because that is a status quo and we're shifting that on the clinical side as well. It's a great question. Why are Apple screen time or other tools that look at content and provide insight, why are they not working? When you put into place fear monitoring tools, the kid is going to lash out generally. Let's take a hypothetical. Let's say that we imagine restricting sweets until high school, and then all of a sudden the child gets it. That is just so overwhelming. They haven't built the skills to learn how to moderate. Can't drink till you're 21. But you can go to college and be on your own with a bunch of people who have helped their prefrontal cortex. We can't go black and white. As Lars mentioned, the device is a window into the state of the health, the psychological state of a child. That doesn't just mean we use it to look at the bads. We can also look at it and say, wow, my son's looking at a lot of videos about tennis. Maybe they're actually interested in this. And I can use that to build trust in a conversation. And so why can't someone just go to ChatGPT and say, my kid wants their phone, at bedtime and I don't know what to do? They apply generic models and they miss neurodivergence and specific health conditions. There's high rates misclassification. Yeah. And that's a major ethical concern that we have.
I'll just interject something too, because I have a bot we're sort of fiddling around with. And I went into ChatGPT and I said, what does Meg Meeker say about do? And it was kind of weird. And it came up with some answers. And I thought, well, kind of, I would say that, but kind of not. And so I thought, I want something that's going to be very specific to me because I don't want Chat GPT to turn into a little mini me running around giving people bad advice. Larissa, what were you going to add?
No, I was just going to say that I think you've just explained so eloquently the problem that we're facing, which is that people are going to Chat GPT and asking it for advice, but it is the wild, wild web. And it's actually not accurate. It's not built by doctors and clinicians. It's pulling a bunch of different pieces together. And when you're talking about your child's safety, you're not only getting advice that isn't necessarily clinically viable, but your kid's problems and issues and medical history is being shared publicly forever.
Mhm.
And there's, especially in the Midwest, I think on the coast, people are a bit more aware of just the upsides and downsides of using technology for this, but we have to create more awareness in the middle of America so that people do not become victims of, quite frankly, these data breaches and falling back into the same issues that we did in social media 1.0. And so that's a big part of why for Ginko, we built it to be HIPAA compliant and 0-day retention so that if anything you share with Ginko, it will never be shared with anyone else or put out into the world. And people need to be aware of that. And we need to be building technology differently for this new age and stage. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But also, like, I'm quite frankly kind of terrified in the ways that I used to Google myself and be like, what's Google saying about me? Now you've got me really going, you want to know what I'm going to be doing at 10 p.m. tonight? Not doom scrolling. I'm going to be on Chat GPT being like, what does Larissa May think about this? Does she like this?
It's
As a pediatrician, I've helped many kids and their families who are struggling with anxiety, depression, grief, all the hard things. And I've seen how difficult it can be to actually get help. Maybe you've tried finding a therapist, but ran into long wait lists or high prices or providers who don't take your insurance. That's where Rula comes in. Rula is a healthcare company that connects you with a licensed in-network therapist quickly and affordably. Most people pay just $15 per session, and depending on your plan, it could even be zero. You start by answering a few simple questions, and Rula matches you with therapists who meet your needs. You could be meeting with someone as soon as tomorrow. Thousands have already turned to Rula for support, and if therapy has ever felt out of reach, I want you to know there is a better way. Go to rula.com/Dr. Meg. That's RULA.com/Dr. Meg to get started today. And when they ask how you heard about them, tell them Parenting Great Kids sent you. You deserve care from someone who cares. Let's pretend I am a 40-year-old parent and I have a 12-year-old daughter who just got her first phone. I hope she didn't. But anyway, who does? And she's on social media. And I'm really worried about what she's seeing, how often she's on there. And so I come to Ginko. What happens next?
Well, I just asked Ginko. I said, Ginko, I'm really worried my 12-year-old daughter about her social media use. Can you give me a playbook for how to develop healthier boundaries? And what Ginko will actually do is say, here's a 2-week plan on how to talk to your daughter, how to help her implement better habits and build better boundaries so that you can foster trust. And we build something that's personalized just for you based on her issues. Other things that you can also add is if your daughter deals with body image issues or other issues, we can ultimately customize that as well. But it starts with how to set up the device safer, how to actually educate your daughter, how to implement, how to create daily structure, and how to actually build that healthy relationship over time. So you can just ask Ginko.
That onto that too, Dr. Meg, these platforms, they do have other parental controls that don't market. So most parents don't know about it. Ginko can actually teach you how to use those tools as well. And we actually say, hey, at the age of 2, you're exposed to technology. And from that 3 to 6 or 3 to 8, you might not have your own iWatch, but you're still exposed to technology. So there's still things, you mentioned, this hypothetical daughter at not having phone until 12, but there's been a whole over a decade of time there where she's been exposed to tech.
Yeah. So ideally, you'd start using it when your kids are 2 or 3.
Exactly.
Ginkgo.
Yeah, exactly. And your relationship with the digital world begins the moment that your child sees blue light. And as a parent, it's actually so much more about prevention and how you can be working upstream as opposed to downstream. And it's really important that we change that mindset, because so often in America, we start focusing on the problems too late or when kids are in high school. But the truth is that it starts so much earlier. So yes, even I would say some of our most passionate parents are the ones who have 3 to 5-year-olds that are just trying to learn how to be better parents.
A lot of narratives around, okay, let's hold off on devices until the age 14 or whatever it is. And yes, there are benefits to it, but generally what we know is that they're trying to find sense of belonging. And unfortunately, a lot of that can be online. They need to be able to practice self-regulation. So again, this is really about, we're trying to help the families develop those early interventions and early behaviors that are healthy. And we know that, you can start with like no phones at dinner, like practicing screen-free time. Like what we see is
that's a
we
big
ask most
problem.
families, right? When we ask most families, the child points to an adult as having the problem.
I love what you're doing, because this is the whole deal. It's not, because I've talked to a number of people. It's like, well, this program is great for getting your computer and your social media and your phones all set up, but you're diving into why it's important, and then how do you deal with it, and then how it's going to impact your kids from a mental health standpoint. I mean, because mental health and digital safety and screens are so interlinked. You really, I see this all the time, and you really can't sort of, because social media and other things, they just have a big impact on kids' minds and their emotional state. And there's nobody else out there doing it that I know of.
I'm going to argue that it's also their physical that takes all of that natural development that happens. And this is a whole thing.
Yeah. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I can see why you really need a team approach, because when you're talking about having Ginko answer questions for you, my immediate thought was, well, who answered those? I mean, what's behind all that? I mean, because ChatGPT clearly didn't have my interest or my data or my research behind them. And so, and I mean, this is a trusted resource. So let's imagine you're a parent and you're listening, and you have a 15-year-old and they're in high school, and you feel like, I've already blown it. I've lost it. No idea how to protect my kid from all this stuff. Is it too late for me? And where do I start now? I mean, can I make up for lost time?
When it comes to the digital world, we always say it's a journey and not a destination. And so you can get involved in your kids' well-being at any point in time. As a parent, and I think we talked a little bit about this, is that we should be thinking about screen time as the starting point and not the ending point. So what I mean by that is that really first, instead of trying to figure out what boundaries to create or what all the can'ts for your 15-year-old, what's really important is to first understand, what they are finding to be curious or exciting about the digital world, and to just get to know your child's digital personality, and to really just start to be attuned and to say, hey, look, like, I actually really want to understand, like, where are you struggling? How's this? Are you struggling with using iPads at school with focus? And like really start by building trust. From there, then you can really get into and hopefully use Ginko to identify those different challenges and get paths forward on how to deal with them. But I think parents, and even myself, always want to jump to solutions when you feel out of control.
Oh, yeah.
But the reframe is you have to jump to understanding first. And I think that's a big part of what makes Ginko what it is. And I think I'm so glad that you were able to name what we're trying to do, which is really combine the emotional health and the digital insights, as opposed to just looking at it as, hey, you're a human and there's a screen over here, because that's not the world our kids are living in. And we always say digital wellness is an inside job. And if we could use this as a tool to bring families together so that when a parent comes in your office and says, hey, look, I know we don't have time to talk about screens, but Ginko is giving me signals that X, Y, and Z, and it allows you to do your job faster, the better off we'll be, and the more patients that you can see and hopefully get to the bottom line sooner. And I think that's really what our goal is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never too late.
Go ahead. It's I say that to parents. It's never too late, because I see so many parents who feel like, the chance to implement changes or have a great relationship is over. Their kids in their 20s, they're off at college. I say, your kids still want from you what they want from you, whether they're, 15 or 55. You always still want to hear your parents say a few things that are critically important. Is Ginko an app or a website?
So we have a website where you can download the app, but it's currently available in the Apple App Store. And we want to talk to our customers so they can always reach out and talk directly to myself or Lars or anyone on our team. And one thing that we're doing and we're very proud of to keep up with digital trends that are happening, creating content around tags that are happening and pushing that to the user, to the parents.
One thing that parents want now is information. And they get a lot of it, but they get a lot of bad information. And I get so frustrated. Often a parent will come in with a child with a fever and they'll have 5 diagnoses already for me. And I think, please.
Don from WebMD, only.
Oh, yeah. And one of them is leukemia, one's meningitis, and the kid's got a cold.
The truth is that so many of these platforms make money off of fear. And for us, we really want to drive empowerment and move from fear to freedom, which unfortunately is not how social media and Reddit and all these places have been built. But parents need to have peace of mind.
Exactly.
We like to call it screen peace.
Yeah. Oh, one of my lines always with parents is never parent out of fear. Parent out of knowledge. And because once you have good knowledge, a lot of your fears will dissipate. Where do you want to be in 5 years?
We want to be the number one tool recommended by pediatricians around the world. And we also, maybe not in 5 years, but if we're lucky, we want to bring screen freedom to every family on the planet.
Mm-hmm. If you are going to change one thing for a child or one thing for a parent, what would that be?
To make sure that parents leave their devices outside of their room every night before they walk in to put them to bed so that their child knows that they have their full attention. Mm-hmm. But my vision is to really build a defining consumer healthcare company that brings families together as opposed to breaks them apart and allows us to use data instead of leaving us to our own devices and selling it off to all the big tech bros.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Dr. Raghu?
It's about seeing a world in which humans can connect again with one another with curiosity.
Love it. My guests today have been Dr. Raghu Appasani and Larissa May. They are co-founders of Ginko, a new AI tool built by clinicians to help families manage screen time. And it does a whole lot more, as you can tell by our interview. I thank you both so much for coming on the podcast today. Best of luck to both of you with Ginko.
I stopped Googling parenting advice when I found this. Dr. Meg Meeker's PGK Insider community is where real parenting help lives.
There's a reason so many parents trust Dr. Meg Meeker. Now her courses, parenting forum, and trusted answers are all in one place, the PGK Insider community. Join free at meekerparenting.com. Real answers from a pediatrician who gets it.